The Department of Health and Human Services is working to modernize the organ transplant system in the United States for the first time in 40 years. They will move away from a single vendor to multiple vendors to support the Organ Procurement and Transplantation Network, also known as OPTN. OPTN has faced criticisms for years about a lack of transparency, potential for conflicts of interest, IT reliability issues, and more. Several contractors will now provide expertise to improve patient safety and policy compliance systems, communication systems, and transparency, as well as IT and management systems. More than 46,000 organ transplant surgeries were performed in the United States last year alone. Of the major organs that are given, including lungs, hearts, and liver, the kidneys are the most needed and the most transplanted organ.
The donation of an organ can be considered a great act of charity. However, the Church also maintains the importance of bodily integrity, that the person donating the organ is doing so voluntarily and is not putting their own health at risk.
According to organdonor.gov, more than 103,000 people in the United States are on a transplant waiting list right now. Every 8 minutes, another person is added to that list. And every day, an estimated 17 people in the U.S. die waiting to get an organ. In an effort to prevent deaths, a concerning organ transplant process has emerged. It's called Normothermic regional perfusion, or NRP for short. Leading ethicists say NRP crosses a line and is unnecessary because other methods are available.
Unfortunately, it kind of sacrifices ethics to make more organs available.
Normothermic regional perfusion, or NRP, is a new controversial organ transplant process. It involves declaring a patient dead based on cardiac criteria after their heart stops beating for between 2 and 5 minutes. Machines then reestablish circulation, but doctors clamp off the arteries, which would bring oxygenated blood to the brain. Doing so ensures that the brain dies, which arguably fulfills the letter but likely not the spirit of the law. This facilitates organ harvesting, but possibly compromises ethical norms, because a doctor has actively participated in the brain death and did not allow the brain to die naturally. And therein lies the concern.
It's very important to maintain in transplant ethics the inviolability of that dead donor rule. You've got to be dead first. We have to have independent criteria to determine that death has occurred. And then we can try to harvest organs. And then, we could try to do things to make sure that those organs are of high quality. But we can't use the procedure of harvesting organs to cause the death of the patient.
During a typical organ transplant, the donor must die naturally, which according to current legal standards requires the irreversible cessation of all brain or circulatory functioning. Once the body dies, the organs begin to sustain damage from lack of oxygen as well. There is a race against time to get them into a new body. Organs can be flown for miles on ice and rushed into a hospital to save someone's life.
So the most amazing experiences I had in medical school involved assisting on organ transplant procedures, particularly a liver transplant that I assisted on, which is just a really extraordinary, life-affirming and life-saving procedure. So if done right, if done well, if done in a way that's ethically acceptable, organ donation is a beautiful gift of life.
According to the Cleveland Clinic, researchers say NRP is used to preserve organs for a longer period of time, potentially being able to modify them with nutrients and medicine and to reduce the organ donor shortage. But critics like Dr. Joseph Meaney, Senior Fellow at the National Catholic Bioethics Center, and Dr. Aaron Kheriaty, Director of the Bioethics and American Democracy Program at the Ethics and Public Policy Center, argue it is sacrificing one patient for another.
Say, look, it is better to save 3 lives by sacrificing one, and it's better to do an evil so that more good will come from it. Now, that it goes completely against normal ethical thinking, sort of Catholic bioethical thinking, Catholic moral theology, where you're never allowed to do evil that good may come from it.
No sane person would argue we should take a perfectly healthy 5-year-old girl and kill her in order to harvest her organs. Because if we take several of her organs, maybe we could save the lives of 4 or 5 other 5-year-olds who are on an organ recipient list and might die if they don't get an organ. And look, she happens to be a perfect match for all of them. And that kind of utilitarian logic just wouldn't fly. Well, we don't want to slip into that form of argumentation when we're talking about a procedure like this. We have to maintain the criteria that we cannot kill people, even if it does good for other people. Therefore, the dead donor rule has to stay in place.
Both bioethicists argue that alternatives to NRP should be practiced in hospitals.
Normothermic machine perfusion. So you declare a patient dead by cardiorespiratory or by brain death criteria. You harvest the organs, you take the organs out. There's no need to clamp the vessels to the brain. Circulation is not restarted while the organs are in the body. The heart is not restored to functioning while it's in the body. You take them out, then you hook them up to a machine that continues to oxygenate them outside of the body.
There's some exciting new research that is being done right now into growing organs. It could be possible that in the future, instead of having to transplant organs from other people, we could actually grow organs from the person's own cells. And that would be a wonderful thing.
Charles Camosy, professor of medical humanities at Creighton University School of Medicine, has written several articles about organ transplantation. He joins us now to dive a little further into this topic. Charles, how widespread would you say the controversial technique NRP is used to harvest organs?
Well, it's hard to say what percentage of organ transplants involves NRP, but at least in my experience, in both secular and Catholic discussions of medical ethics, frankly, this issue doesn't get discussed very often, and that's one reason I'm so glad you guys are engaging it, because it really does need to be discussed.
Okay. We know the church in principle is supportive of organ donations, but there is a lot of gray area, particularly when it comes to declaring someone brain dead. Can you elaborate?
Yeah, I'm an organ donor myself, though I'm increasingly uneasy with that decision, frankly, after everything I've learned over the last several years studying this issue, engaging on this issue. And you're right, there is a lot of gray area. In fact, there's going to be a major conference at the Catholic University of America this coming February, actually, with the National Catholic Bioethics Center. I'll be speaking at it along with some other folks, which is engaging in particular brain death. So we go all the way back to the 60s and 70s when we first started talking about brain death as death. It was a Harvard ad hoc committee on brain death, which declared that the case, and all 50 states sort of followed soon after that. Unfortunately, the reason why they declared brain death as death was precisely because they wanted more organs. So that they were very upfront about that. We need to declare brain death as death so we can get more organs for people using the dead donor rule. And especially now, my gosh, we have serious debate about whether this is the case. We've had brain individuals gestate children to birth. We've had brain dead individuals get their first period. Brain individuals fight off infections, react to bodily trauma by releasing adrenaline and heart rate increasing. So there's lots and lots of questions to ask about this, including the fact, I'll just finish with this, the American Academy of Neurology has said, you know what, maybe the whole brain doesn't need to be dead. Maybe who cares if the brainstem is actually functioning or the hypothalamus is actually functioning. So effectively, we might be, in those circles anyway, moving away from the brain death standard to a partial brain death standard.
That's very troubling to hear. And Charles, you speak to many medical professionals who are on the front lines when organs are being harvested and transplanted. What do you hear from them on the ground?
Well, I hear lots of things. I hear in particular the sense that we might be returning to a kind of utilitarian sort of let's just decide that people are dead because of the ability to get organs. And again, I'm here to say we probably, lots of people watching maybe have people alive in their own very close circles who are alive because of organ transplant. I know I do. But we're, especially as Catholics, we're not just straight up no chaser consequentialists about this, right? There are certain things, we can't just round up homeless people and get organs, for instance, right? These have to be governed by severely imposed defenses of human dignity. And if we are just being utilitarian about this, which again, it seems like we might be sliding towards in a very particular way, boy, oh boy, that's a unfortunate direction, as you may have mentioned earlier.
No, you're right. So what should Catholics be taking into consideration when discerning whether or not to be an organ donor?
Well, I think there's got to be a lot of prayer at this point. That's number one. A lot of discernment. These are new questions for many people. At least when I was growing up as a pretty, down the line Catholic, it was just a matter of course that of course you would be an organ donor. But with these new questions, these new practices, these new principles that are at the heart of this, I think maybe prayer. I'd also maybe talk to people in your lives and make it clear with them what, if you have particular views, what your views are. It may be more auspicious to take yourself off the DMV sort of checkbox thing and maybe have your own document that says, I would like to donate in this situation, but not this situation, or only after this number of minutes after cardiac arrest, or I don't want, the perfusion procedure. But I just come back to prayer. I think especially if you're confused about this, as frankly I am, I think we need to bring a lot of this to prayer and to God.
You can't go wrong with prayer. Charles, is there anything else you'd like to add that you think people should be aware of?
Yeah, there's another way that people are declared dead, and it's not just through brain death, it's through the fancy phrase is cardiopulmonary standard. That just means people who have stopped breathing and their hearts have stopped. And frankly, we now stop about between 2 and 5 minutes, or after 2 or 5 minutes of cardiac arrest and the stoppage of breathing, we take organs out, which for me, from my perspective, is not any indication that you have died. In fact, if I often joke with my students, if I just plop down on the ground in front of them and the EMTs come after 5 minutes, I hope you don't declare me dead, right? Please, ask them to work on me. So that might be another thing you also talk to your friends and family about, that you put in some kind of legal document. What is an appropriate number of minutes to wait? That'd be another thing to think about too.
Thank you so much, Charles, for being with us today, and thank you for the work that you do informing and educating people. Thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.